All right, welcome into the Bite Me podcast. It is happening. It is going to be fun. That is Captain Caleb McCumber. We'll get back to him in a second with some giveaways for you guys in today's show. That is Captain Dean Thomas with, it looks like a Spook Junior, and that is Captain Joe Null. Captain Joe, wait a minute. Joe Null is not a captain. Why is she on my screen? She's staring right at us too, like she's got something to say. Captain Scott Null is there with Joe, and boy, she was ready for whatever topic was coming her way. She was staring at
Spook Junior, man.
Yeah, she was looking at that Spook Junior. Yeah, this is the Bite Me podcast. I'm John Lopez, and you guys really appreciate you joining us as always. And of course, if you're relatively new or new to the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget to join the Facebook group page, which is just an absolute monster. And we'll get going, man. The Facebook group page, I think about 10,700. And we got some fishing. I'm gonna start with this. Just a little pre-show conversation. Nothing too spectacular today. But Captain Dean, first thing out of your mouth, we were talking about that weather, which is going to be our first big topic today. You were saying there are fish to be caught, and I want to get back to Caleb here in a second because we have some giveaways for you. An Angler U 1 month membership, and all you have to do is on the what's it called? Caleb, I'll let you say it right now.
Just in the chat, throw in hashtag AU. However, if you are already an Angler U member, let's pass on to the next guy. This is about folks that maybe they don't have the $20. Maybe they just haven't tried it out yet. But the fellow that donated them, that is his wish that people that have not got to be here before get to be here now.
Hashtag AU in the comments section, and I will randomly draw over the course of the next hour or so. Dean, it's cold. It's going to get a lot colder, but you keep saying it's windy. It's going to get a little windier, but you said there are fish to be caught.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're there. I mean, the tide is low. What we spent the last bunch of weeks talking about, the tide dropped, it's stabilized now. Even though it's cold, it's been cold for a couple days, a week or so, 49-degree water temperature. But man, when you find the fish, they're in a good mood. I mean, we've tore them up this week. Schools of reds on the drop-offs, the flats are bone dry. Even when the tide comes back in, they're staying on the drop-offs. They're piled up. So when you find them, you don't move far. I sat in one spot and went back to back to back. I quit counting at 20 redfish. I mean, every single cast. I was, so they're just, I mean, it's good. It's what you wait for. Unfortunately, we're going to get a little twist in the program the next couple of days. But if you can brave the elements and get out there, I mean, it's good. Plus, there's no people. The boat ramps are deserted. There's nobody out there, which is a huge advantage as well.
And that's, I'm sure, everywhere up and down the coast. Like I said, we'll get to the weather and the cold and what a winter pattern, if there is one, might mean. But how much have you guys been fishing? Let's start with Caleb on this one, then Scott. I know Dean was out a couple of days ago. You've been deterred by the weather. Has it been good? Has it been bad? What's going on, Caleb?
I've been vicariously living through Dean. Dean sent me no less than 20 videos of him absolutely smoking redfish and asked me to edit them into a video. So that's what I've been doing. I've been talking to everybody that's out there. However, I'm leaving tomorrow night to go fish 5 days straight in Louisiana. So I've been kind of hanging out and tidying up the things around the house and around the studio before I got out of here.
Scott, what are you hearing or what are you doing if you've been out?
Everything looks good over here. I mean, it's like Dean said, low water. Reds are up there prowling around shallow when the sun comes out. It's like we were talking about last week, that Saturday afternoon, it went off.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at all the weather and said, all right, well, when would you go? And I'd wait till Saturday afternoon. I talked to some people who went Saturday morning and they took an ass whooping Saturday morning, just nothing happening. And then by Saturday afternoon, it was on.
And there's no reason not to wait it out. I mean, look at the majors and the minors. If that's your thing, it is one thing that I look at. And just go when it's a little more comfortable, man, right? I mean, Dean, what was your schedule like?
We launched at 9.
Yeah.
That's like on Caleb's clock. His
Mhm.
Caleb's theory. And so that day, absolutely, the major started at 10, and at 10:30. I mean, these schools of redfish, there were redfish. So as they were roaming and they would blow up, you just see them blow up, and redfish were skying out of the water. I mean, it was at 10:30, they were just feasting. They were going crazy. And actually, we fished until I just couldn't quit, man. I mean, we kept going, and we didn't come in till 4 o'clock that afternoon.
Man,
And
it's been a while too. It's been a while since it's like that. We've caught fish, but like that.
It was nonstop action for 5 hours. Just
man,
whatever. What you could take a break, go to the boat, have a cold drink, just walk back into them, and they were there.
Oh, so you're doing a little waiting.
I had we were wade fishing. I had probably 20 fish bang into my legs, hit me in the feet. They were there were that many. Yeah, I don't remember being hit by that many fish in one day in ever.
Man. By the way, we just did the first drawing. So Caleb, you want to write this one down. And we're going to have 4 more for a month membership of Angler U. And the winner is John Barbie, Barbee. If you haven't, BAR as in Barbie the doll, but with 2 E's at the end. If you haven't, just hashtag AU on the comments section here, and you'll be entered. I mean,
I think that's John Barbie.
Is it Barbie?
I tell you, it's somebody that me and Scott both know damn well he's had $20 for the last 7 months. What do you think, Scott?
I know Barbie from way back, man. He's a good dude.
All right,
man, that dude just reaches in his pocket and like $100 falls on the floor. I don't know what's up with that guy.
Last time I walked past him, he handed me a stainless steel trout cutout 4 feet long. I know that was more than $20.
He doesn't mess with 1s and 5s. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's change, man.
Doesn't mess with. Well, so you're going to have a chance to get a free 1-month membership, but all no holds barred on the commentary here. But
there's that.
So just hashtag AU if you want to get in. All right. So one of the reasons we're here is weather. Now, we thought it was going to be pretty bad last time, I guess last week, week before, whatever it was. But this time it means it sounds real, Scott. I mean, we'll get to Dean, who is color him skeptical.
This time it sounds real.
This time they really mean it.
What did it sound like last week?
It didn't sound like it was that they really meant it. They were just sort of, their eyes were wandering. They were looking at the sky. But this time they're looking you dead in the face, Scott. And they're saying, 17 to 25 for lows, depending on where you are on the coast.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching all the stuff on that one last week. And, it wasn't coming together. So I didn't get too fired up about that one. But this one, all the little models and stuff I look at, they're kind of leaning a little harder on this one. That other one, it kept looking like it was going to slide more east, and it did. And this one here, it's more barreling down the middle.
And so, what? Go ahead.
Got a puppy grabbing my shoelaces and growling.
She wants to contribute.
I think last week was like it came from Mexico. This one's coming from the Arctic.
Oh, it depends on how far.
No, I mean all of that rain, the low pressures. No,
Mexico pushed the last one.
Yeah, it was the cartels. Now those low pressures came from the south up the coast. Well, and what happened was, because that low pressure came from the south, it gave us all the clouds on the coast. So with the clouds, it's like a blanket over the earth. I mean, it does not get that cold if this one clears up. But see, that's where my discrepancy is. There's a lot of chance of rain and precipitation in this forecast. If it stays cloudy, and inland it may be cold. Inland, Texas is a big area. It's a lot of space out there. Right along the coast, we had that influence of the Gulf and the clouds, and we just didn't get it here. So,
Caleb, what do you think is going to happen, and what do you think? The big question here is for our listeners, right? Like if it is that cold, obviously we've talked about it in the past. How long is it going to be that cold? Looks like a couple of days at least. And what might that do to the great fishing that Dean just had, to the great fishing you've heard about, and maybe even sort of the ecosystem down here.
I think it's gonna slow it down, and it's just gonna reset all of it. The water will get cold. It'll drop down again, but then as it starts heating up, just everything that Dean just got done saying will kick right back up and start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it's going to do to me is, instead of fishing all the way through Monday, I'm probably going to drive home on Sunday because it looks stinking cold. And,
I was going to ask you what's going on in Louisiana now with all this.
It should be fine in Louisiana. There's several big back areas of marshes that I think the water's going to be real clear in, just because it's protected from a lot of this wind, but that cold water's going to be cleaner. If that isn't working out, I'm going to do the old Scott Knoll guide method, and I'm going to go out to the barrier islands and cruise around the edges of those and look for bull reds rooting around those channels. Dean was talking about they're on the ledges and the flats and the drop off. There's so many channels in Louisiana that are deep in the middle, and then they have a 20-30 yard shelf on both sides of them, and those reds will get up there when it warms up and be rooting around. You ever get an eyebrow so long that it keeps catching light and getting in your eye? Is that just an aging thing?
Dude, I had one last week. I thought it was my eyelash, and I kept going like this, trying to get there was a loose eyelash. I had an eyebrow hair so long it was tickling my eyelash.
This is new to a dude that's 43. I'm gonna throw that out there, but I've seen enough Santa Claus eyebrows that I feel like this is what's happening to me.
I had an ear hair that was so long it was scratching me in the eye.
You had an ear hair?
It's like ear hairs. Them ear hairs is like the hair on a pig's back. It's like a clear guitar string or something. Them are weird.
It was like curling down from I know that's gross. It's a horrible visual, but
oh my God.
that's where we are.
Keep in mind too that those big bull reds over there, my experience, they don't give a damn how cold it gets. I mean, I've caught them over there when it was sleeting and they're in a foot of water. So it's a good place to be when it's good and cold like that.
That's why they're the superior fish.
Oh, we'll get to that. By the way, some of the topics we have, it's NFL playoff time. I was trying to get the music going, da-da-da, da-da-da, and all that stuff. We're going to get to that topic. Caleb, if you can call that up, that'd be great to hear when we get to that topic, but I couldn't find it. We're gonna have an NFL type playoff bracket, and you guys got to pick winners. Like you got to pick winners, and then we're gonna have a champion. It's gonna go pretty quickly, hopefully, but maybe not. And I don't care. With some scenarios, different scenarios that these guys are gonna pick, and it's gonna say a lot about what how they prefer to fish. We're also going to talk about grass, mud, shell, and sand. That was a great topic that I think it was, I forget who it was, gave Dean a question. Seagrass.
Perry Bowman.
Yeah, it was Perry Bowman. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So we got a lot of stuff for you today. But before we move on from the cold weather, and obviously, we can get out there. I'm planning on being out there. There is a sea turtle question, Scott, that kind of came up on the group page on Facebook, but this is a little bit of a I don't know, public service, maybe just sort of a heads up for some of our listeners that might come across this, especially on the lower coast. Like this is real and this is serious, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they already had a whole bunch of them on this last cold front that Dean says didn't happen. A whole bunch of them that got cold stunned all up and down the coast, and everybody went out there and picking them up, doing their thing. This one, I would assume, is probably going to have quite a few more if it's as cold as they're talking about and lasting for 2 days. Our good friend Bridget that was on with us last year about
I was just going to ask you, yeah.
I ended up being friends with her on Facebook. I see her every now and then on there. But yeah, there's the cold turtle stranding thing that you can get a hold of, and they'll come pick them up if you find them.
They're trained. They know what they're doing.
Do all that good stuff.
And so a question came up the other day about turtles. Turtles have been on Earth as long as the dinosaurs. They survived the meteor. What did the turtles do before people started picking them up and putting them in warm baths?
There's more of them, first of all. I mean, there's a lot more of them. I think is probably as big a factor as anything, because they're not endangered, but what are they threatened? I believe.
Well, they were pretty far up the list on threatened for a long time.
I just thought that was, how did the turtles survive the last ice age?
Mm-hmm.
How'd they do that without people picking them up and putting them in warm buckets?
Is that what they do? Here's a warm bucket, turtle.
Just something to ponder.
We'll let you chill. By the way, Caleb, John Morris, regular spelling. That's the second drawing. We have 3 more for a 1 month subscription to Angler U. So John Morris, you should be a happy dude.
Man,
he just typed it. He's the most recent. He just typed it. Hashtag AU if you want to get in.
Man, you talk about a dude with a lot of money. That's John Morris. If I had his money, I'd throw mine away.
So you know John Morris too?
I don't know. I know a John Morris. I don't know if that's the same one.
He doesn't mess with 5s and 1s either. That's one of those things right there. But no, man.
Everybody who gets on AU, it's gonna be, you're gonna love every minute of it.
And while we're talking about Angler U, which is obviously Caleb's a great friend, and AU is a great friend of the podcast, I want to pass along these 2 text messages that I got just because I know it's going to help. I got them, one yesterday evening, one this morning, from other friends of the podcast that our listeners need to take advantage of. This is from JT Koshy. You guys know him over at the Boatyard. He said they just got a new incentive that for the next 3 months, I'm reading it right off my phone here. The next 3 months, any new registered Suzuki will get a 7-year warranty instead of a 5-year warranty. So that's pretty dang cool. And he said that Tohatsu has cut a deal with a financing company with interest rates as low as 1.99. Because I just asked him what up, and he was excited to be able to share that with our listeners. And Anglers Anonymous, we all have Chris and Mike Butler. They're great friends. Porpoise Built Optics, they're now the official deal. I didn't know that, so I'm glad he texted me that. And of course they're going to be at the fishing show and everything. So take advantage of our friends here on the podcast. And one more sort of, I started to tell you guys this before we came on air. I'm getting a new boat. It's officially official. It's officially official. Getting the new Warrior. And here's the best thing of all. This is remember what I was telling you the other day, Dean? Chet over at Freedom Boats is going to do it. There's going to be a Bite Me edition. He's creating a Bite Me podcast edition, Freedom Warrior, with all the upgrades, the bucket seats, the upgraded everything. I forget some of the other things. I'll remember as we move along here in the podcast in the next few weeks.
Powder coated aluminum,
getting the whole 9 yards. So if you want this is actually very cool. I was telling them at the office today. They're like, that's badass. You got Freedom Boat. There's going to be a Bite Me edition Freedom Boat. How cool is that?
It's going to have dual fuel gauges.
What does my Bite Me edition Freedom Boat have? 150-gallon tank. It's going to have 150-gallon gas tank, 2 fuel gauges, lots of rope, a paddle. It's going to have
2 sets of trolling motor batteries.
Yeah, 2 trolling motor batteries, 7 breakers. But nah. So that's pretty cool. Anybody want to hit up?
Is it going to have a little list saying to check your breaker, check your before paddling, check these things?
Go ahead. I can take it. Yeah. So
we need to come up with a Bite Me checklist of things to do before you start paddling with your damn net.
You should write them on the net.
Number 5. It's going to have my signature on the gas gauge. It's going to be a Bite Me signature edition with my signature on the gas gauge. It's all right. Go ahead. I can take it. Popping cork holder. Tom Hill says, okay, I didn't deserve all this. Trolling motor breaker box. So, but if you want the cool one, hit them up and you can get the Freedom Warrior Bite Me edition. How about that? That makes me feel like we're big time, which of course we're not, but here we are. All right.
Cork tray on the dash.
Popping cork tray. Oh, it's going to have a place for my taco tray. Guarantee you that. Better have a place for the taco tray. All right. So, Caleb, you got any NFL music for us?
Man, I am working on it. You want me to just like have it like crappy like, or do you want me to do it like for real?
Well, it's up to you.
It costs us some money if you do it for real.
Oh, that's right. The YouTube police are gonna get us. Let's not do the music. Then more people. No, don't make noise. La 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 la.
Just turn it off. There we go.
All right. So here is Caleb, Dean, and Scott. I want to get your answers on this. This is the NFL playoffs Bite Me podcast fishing edition, and I think this is going to say something about what you guys really, really love. This is the NFL divisional playoffs. Is the NFL going to sue me now because I keep saying NFL? I don't know. You would.
Don't say Super Bowl.
Yeah, don't. Well, you just did. All right, Caleb. In the first playoff game, it's catching an 8-pound trout versus catching a 9-pound redfish. Who wins that?
You ain't gonna see this coming. I think I'd go with an 8-pound trout because they're a bit tougher to find than a 9-pound redfish.
All right, that's one vote for saying. That's why I'm just doing you three guys so we can have a consensus. One vote for that. Dean?
It's trout because it's just not as common.
All right, so Scott, your vote doesn't matter, but we want to hear it.
Unanimous.
8-pound trout.
A lot of 9-pound redfish and up. I ain't caught that many 8-pound trout.
Yeah. All right. A topwater hookup on a big fish. Caleb, we're going in the same order. Versus a corky hookup on a big fish.
Corky hookup.
All right. There's one for corky.
Top water.
All right, Scott, you're gonna have the top water.
That answer is. You know that without even asking.
I know, but our listeners may not have. So we've got in the next round, it's going to be 8-pound trout versus top water. All right, in the other side of the bracket, that's a little loud.
I can't hear it in my monitors. I don't know why. My bad, guys.
All right, now we're going to go offshore for a second. Caleb, tarpon versus marlin.
Marlin. Screw a tarpon.
Marlin.
Oh well. It's big tarpon.
Big tarpon. But marlin
wins.
wins.
I don't give a damn about marlin. They just back the boat up for you and you just reel. That's all you do.
I don't care about either.
No. Wrong.
Reel.
No. Until you've seen a 500-pound marlin just across the surface, there's no substitute.
Yeah, but see, after I get done fighting that marlin, I can walk in the kitchen and make a sandwich. Can't do that on a tarpon boat.
Well, that's true too.
Depends on the boat.
Might be a babe in there too.
But I mean, yeah, those are.
Ain't many babes on tarpon boats.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know that. All right, other side of the bracket. Marlin is going to face the winner here. Bull Red versus Jack Crevalle.
Bull Red.
Dean?
I'm going to have to go with Jack Crevalle on that one.
Mm-hmm.
For pure fun, a Jack.
All right. We've reached the semifinals. This is the conference championships. Caleb, 8-pound trout versus a topwater bite with a big fish.
8 pound. Was the big fish an 8-pound trout or better?
Let's just say it's a big trout. A big trout.
What did the trout hit?
Just general, like I guess plastic. Something other than a topwater.
Big fish on a topwater.
You're going to take the topwater?
Yeah.
All right.
Topwater.
Oh, that surprised me.
Man, I'm a topwateraholic.
I know you are, but it surprised me. That's an 8-pound trout. You just gave up.
It might have been a 9-pound trout on the topwater.
So
I
what's
said
the
big.
big fish that hit the top water?
I just said big. Let's say 5 pounds, something like that.
So what if it's a Jack Crevalle? Then that's pretty badass.
No, that's true too.
I'm not trading a Jack Crevalle on a topwater for an 8-pound trout.
Hey, y'all give me shit about getting into the weeds on this.
Scott, you gonna just for prosperity?
You're the tiebreaker, Scott.
Well, no, it's they both said top water.
Hey,
Oh,
Yeah,
y'all
okay.
the rep
I don't know, man.
got us on this one.
I think a guarantee of an 8-pound trout would be kind of hard to
Yeah.
pass up.
Well, see,
But-
whenever I was asked this question, it could have been a 9-pound trout, and then Dean made it a Jack Crevalle. So now we got a problem.
What if it was a damn marlin?
Can we go to review on this? Where's my red ball?
I had a sailfish on a top water once. That was kind of cool.
You did?
Yeah.
That's more than kind of cool.
It was
That's
really
very cool.
It didn't stay
All right.
long, but it hit it.
This one might be unfair, but maybe not. The other championship game is Marlin versus a Jack Crevalle.
Oh, well.
Caleb,
Marvin.
Marlin. All right, so your championship is big fish on a topwater versus a marlin.
Big fish on a topwater. Unless it's a Jack Crevalle.
Huh. Well,
It could be a marlin on a topwater.
Now that would be something. Now we'd have a story.
well, I mean, typically marlin hit on top water.
Well,
Typically it
the
is.
tracer. I mean, what do they call them? Teasers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Man, I catch enough big fish on top water. The marlin is the championship.
All right, Scott, you're the tiebreaker.
As a marlin, man.
Yeah, I've never caught a marlin, but next
Caleb's
year
the
in
Hunter-
next year
Caleb
in
is the
Costa
Hunter
Rica.
Welch of picking.
What's that?
I said Caleb is the Hunter Welch of picking.
All that dude has to do is post. They're going to be good this year, and they're going to absolutely just poop in the bed.
Yeah.
It's the kiss of death.
He has missed more predictions this year than anybody I know.
Well, he roots for Cowboys and Longhorns. He's setting himself up. It's like John acting surprised when they give him crap about a popping cork. Like, oh, that was
Yeah,
weird.
these comments are off the chart for the Bite Me edition.
Marlin on a popping cork.
No, I'm talking about for my version of the Bite Me edition, Freedom Warrior. An alarm that tells you you've been throwing a popping cork more than 20% of the time. Hey, we have another winner here. That's 3 of 5. Rick McGee. We all have seen Rick McGee. That's our buddy down in Louisiana, isn't it? Oh no,
Yeah.
we're no. That's someone else.
I
I'm
don't know what the hell
thinking.
you're talking about, but okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Rick's a regular listener. You got that,
Good
Caleb?
fan. Great guy. Heck of a fisherman, that Rick McGee. Yep.
He's going
All right,
to be better
Dean.
now.
What's that?
South Carolina.
He's going to be better now.
Oh, South Carolina. That's where he was from. So you win.
And Rick, you
that-
might be a little bit upset with our content, but I think some of it will transfer over. We had C.A. Richardson last week. He said the word South Carolina, so that puts us in your ballpark, baby.
How was that?
It was good, man. CA is a pro. It was an honor to have him in here. We'll be getting him back.
Oh, good. Here?
Oh yeah. No, I was talking about AU. I am working on getting him in to Bite Me as well, though.
Okay. Good deal. Because he's good. And as I said last week, I've watched his show for years. So Dean, really good question you texted me, and we've never talked about this. I think you guys just jump in. You guys just jump in with whatever thoughts you have. But I'm gonna start with Dean. The first part of the question, the one I liked, was the best times, maybe times of year, to fish grass versus mud versus shell versus sand. Is that a thing, Dean? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a thing, but we still fish all of those things all year long, but seasonally, certain things can be expected to be better. In the summer, you're over the grass, you're out there on the shallows, but there's mud under that grass.
Yeah. But I think more in a
But
generic
the
sense,
thing
yeah.
about the general thought process is in the winter in the mud, because mud is not as dense as a hard bottom. The heat will penetrate deeper into the mud. It will retain heat. So the water that passes over that mud is a few degrees warmer than the water that passes over a hard sandy bottom. So those areas tend to be a little bit warmer. Plus that mud is warmer. It's not uncommon, you know, like after next week, if it does drop down as cold as predicted, whenever you're catching those fish, they got the mud on their belly. They got the little parasites living on their belly because they've been laying down there in the mud with them. So there is a season for those things for sure, even though it crosses over at times as well.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, Dean hit it really well. And
What about this though? Let me ask you before you go on, because where my mind went was grass and sand can be just as, I guess, comforting, for lack of a better word, or warmer as mud. So what would you say about those?
the mud's going to warm up a lot faster than the grass and the sand. Plus, your grass isn't going to be as lush and thick in the wintertime either. It's going to be a lot more sparse. And yeah, I mean, if it's dead cold, I'm fishing something that's got some good mud to it and get that sunshine on the mud, let it warm up. Now the caveat to that would be when these tides go super low.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
mud also holds that cold really well. If the flats go completely dry on one of these nights when it's 20-something degrees, and I've been out there where the mud got crusty, where it froze, and when that water comes back on top of that mud, it chills the water just like an ice cube. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables here, man. But you get sunshine on mud, it heats up really, really fast. If you got mud next to some rubble rock coming in, some concrete rubble that goes down onto a mud bottom, that's a money hole when it's really been cold and it warms up as soon as the sun comes out. That was one of my go-tos when we had the wintertime redfish tournaments. Catch that behind a cold front. I had 2 or 3 spots around Galveston where there was old concrete rubble junk that was leaning off the shoreline, going down into the water, and it went down to about 5 or 6 feet onto a mud bottom. And that place was money.
Let me ask you this, Caleb. Go ahead. Just jump in.
Yeah, I am going to jump in. Thank you, John. Over here in the private chat, while Dean was just nailing that answer, John says, just raise your hand and hop in. And me and Scott could not have kept our hands any lower. And Scott still got called on.
Well, I just figured you guys were being mean.
No. Those two dudes nailed it completely. I got a topic we could change up real quick though.
Yeah, man.
Because me and Scott might need Dean's answer here. So Dean, I'm gonna need you to lock in, pay attention here, and Scott can further explain the scenario that we're in. When we were waiting for this front to come in, and these ripping 30-mile-an-hour northwest winds, and for it to do to the tide what it has done to the tide every single stinking time for eternity. And Scott and I, for 24 hours, watched the northwest wind rip in and the tide come in with it for what, Scott, a solid day?
It rose for 12 hours.
It rose like
the northwest wind.
With a northwest wind that should have dumped it a foot. And the only thing I can come up with is we were on a full moon and maybe the moon overrode the wind, but it doesn't make sense.
No,
so
there was nothing about it that made sense. I was looking at tide charts up and down the coast. It was pouring down rain. I got like 3 or 4 inches of rain in 2 days. So I was kind of bored. So I was sitting here watching it, and I have no explanation for it whatsoever. We got Compton in on it, and Compton was scratching his head. It was the damnedest thing. I mean, I've never, ever in all my years of watching the tides seen that.
It would have surprised me if it didn't fall. It would have surprised me if it only fell 2 inches.
Yeah.
But the fact that it came in 6-8 inches, something like that, it didn't come in crazy, but it came up.
It was a full moon rising.
I mean, do you think the moon could have had any effect like that?
Of course it could have. Yes.
I don't think
and it was leading right up to the first day of the full moon.
Yeah. I mean, I've still never seen the moon defeat a northwest wind.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Now
never
you
seen
have.
tide charts.
Can't say that no more.
I just saw the moon defeat flat Earth theory, and I like it because gravity does exist.
That's right. Hey, what about back on the other thing? What I was going to ask you, Caleb. Oh, by the way,
I thought I got out of that with all of that. I
no,
still got to
no,
answer
man.
it. Oh,
no,
damn
I'm
it.
going to ask you. I'm going to ask you about Shell, but I forgot to get to this last week. Did you step in a septic tank?
I did not step in a septic tank, John. And I noticed you blew right past it last week, and noticed me like, wait, stop! Don't.
Hey, I always remember. Eventually, I always remember.
I didn't step in one. I drove my truck off in one.
That's even worse.
Your truck stepped in it.
I grew up my whole life. My dad, my grandpa saying, "Don't run over that septic tank."
Mhm.
And it took both of them being dead and gone for me to figure out what they were talking about, because that happened sudden.
Did it go down all the way?
I all the way to the frame.
Oh my gosh! Did it smell?
How'd you get it out?
A buddy with a winch and a big old truck. It worked out the best it possibly could, but man, it was violent and it was sudden. And
so while we're getting into Caleb's business, did you ever fix that lawnmower?
Working on it.
Be ready for spring.
I took the lawnmower to the mechanic, and then about 2 days later, he called me and asked me where the rest of the parts were, and I still got to get those to him. Apparently, turns out they want those back too.
They actually want parts.
Well, I sheared the pulleys off of the mowing deck, and they wanted the pulleys to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a lawnmower mechanic. I don't know what they need. I took them a lawnmower. What's the problem?
Did you shear it on the septic tank?
I did not. The septic tank I have here, I actually break the septic tank with the mower. Like, it's got them stupid sprinklers. I replace those once a week.
Did you break the septic tank with your truck?
Oh yeah.
Like a big crack or wide open?
like a scene from Indiana Jones whenever there's a snake pit at the bottom. Like, everything just caved in. It was eight linear feet of doom. And the guy in the passenger seat couldn't get out very good.
What did it smell
like? Potpourri.
Poopery.
John, what does septic tank smell like? I mean,
I wanted to get his description.
Yeah, no, well, now, to be fair, I was not in public when this happens, but it smelled a lot like Michelob Ultra on my breath. But I was not in a public roadway on a public roadway, nor was I going to or coming from a public roadway. I was just simply moving a boat.
Mm-hmm.
Not very far.
Drove over a septic tank. Well,
Drove over.
Right. But you are good
about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you ain't gonna believe what I just did.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Like if Caleb told me that, I would just say, yes, I will.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna believe
There
what
was
I
zero surprise in my voice.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that.
Yes, I will.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm getting to the point where I don't react either. I was like, oh, well, got something else to figure out, I guess.
Yeah.
That's pretty well how we. That's all of it.
But you are a carpenter again.
I is. Man, I wish I could see this pretty table that I got going on here, and I sanded it outside, and here's the thing though. I did this one outside, and I ain't got a story or nothing to show for it. All I got's a stupid table.
So I'm saying you're a carpenter now.
I am a carpenter.
I was going to ask you about the other part of that question, and that is shell. Because I fish, obviously when I'm in a place like East Matagorda that has a lot of shell, sometimes in Sabine, I just fish shell all the time. But the question was about, is there a best time? Is there a time when you're just not going to leave? That kind of thing. We talked about sand and mud and seagrass, and we're going to get back to seagrass on another part of that. But what about shell?
I mean, fishing shell after a cold front, I kind of want the sun to have been on a little bit and warming it up. Even if it's just a warming trend and the sun's kind of heating through the clouds. If we're in the middle of the cold spell, I don't know that I would really target the shell as much unless it was shell with the good heavy mud around it. But just like my South Carolina guy over there, they probably fish like limestone points and ledges and stuff. It's like concrete. It's hard. It absorbs heat and holds heat and puts it off. So as long as it's receiving some, I would be happy to it. But if it's been overcast and freezing cold, I'm not really going to target shell unless it's just a byproduct of being on a super muddy spot.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell you Keith Beal, Beal?
That
Keith,
cheap son of a gun. You know, he has a suite at the Astros game and has never signed
but he
up
doesn't
for
have
my
a
stuff.
membership to Angler U.
Imagine, right?
Yeah. So he's number 4 on the drawing, and we have one more here before the end of the podcast. So even though Dean brought up this question, I'm gonna start with Scott on this because it's about the seagrass. We've talked about it a lot. You know how important it is, how it's kind of gone through its ups and downs on growing. But the question Dean got, Scott, and maybe he shared it with you about how the seagrass grows in the winter, especially what could it hinder any type of growth that you'd had previously, and what the seagrass prospects are right now in places down lower middle coast and below.
It goes dormant just like your lawn, pretty much wintertime. It'll get real sparse in places where it was thicker in the past, and it tends to shed a little bit. You'll have some of that floating dead grass around, and piles up on the shorelines when the wind blows, and then that starts a regrowth in the springtime. But in the winter, I don't even look at grass near as much. It's going to be a lot thinner and generally a lot shorter. And there's places I go that get devoid of grass. Some of my flats that go completely dry around here, they've got grass in the summer. All the grass will be completely gone by the end of winter after it's been dry and sat dry during some of these hard cold fronts, but it always comes back in the spring.
Well, Dean, I don't know about you. You're out there a lot more than me, but I haven't seen seagrass, and I know it grows dormant, as Scott just said, but I haven't seen a lot of seagrass on my lures. It just doesn't seem like there's as much out there. Am I missing something?
Well, right now the ducks are chewing it all up, and it's floating grass from the ducks.
Yeah.
But it goes to stubble. It's just like Scott said, it's just like your lawn. And I mean, so it's been so warm up until this point with kind of high tides. The grass has been growing just fine through most of the winter. This past week, while we were out there on the ultra low tide, those flats are bone dry. The grass is exposed. It's got really, really cold. It's dead and brown right now. But I mean, as miserable as it looks for the next 2 months, as soon as we get to springtime, the water temperature warms up, the sun gets right, the water gets right. And it's just like your lawn, all of a sudden one day you're back out there mowing again after a little break. But yeah, it comes back. The low tide and the cold weather is what really knocks it down, which is what we're about to get a whole bunch of that next week.
Yeah. You mentioned the ducks. Did y'all get that text I sent you from a listener? I won't mention any names. They wants us to do a PSA about ducks.
What's his name?
Fishermen around. What's his name? You almost got me. I
saw the hesitation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So let me read it. First of all, I didn't know. I don't know if this is how true this is, but quote, I was wondering if you could do a PSA on fishermen staying away from duck hunters, which we've talked about on this podcast, by the way. There's no real reason, unless you just don't see them. But anyway, we continue. I'm a fisherman, but also a duck hunter. Last 3 trips duck hunting in the marsh, I've had boats come and fish right around our decoys, telling me that I don't own the water. Rules for duck hunting say that you need to stay at least 200 yards away, or it is considered hunter harassment. Please let these young fishermen know that it is against the law to harass duck hunters, and they need to stay at least 200 yards away. I've stayed away, Scott or Dean or whomever wants to jump. I've stayed away because, like, as we've talked about, there's other places to fit. I didn't know this was a law.
Well, it's a huge issue around here. It comes up every year with duck hunters, pepper and kayakers. And so over here around Aransas Pass, we have the kayak trails, the designated kayak trails, and we also have, legendary duck hunting in the exact same area. So there's a lot of interaction between kayakers and duck hunters, which creates a lot of controversy. And yes, technically there is a law. You cannot harass. Well, you can't harass fishermen as well as.
Well, no,
hunters.
the harassment part, I don't disagree with.
And so, and that's that you would probably have a hard time getting that to go to court as harassment.
Mhm.
The just because you're in the same area. I mean, so then if that's harassment, then, when somebody runs across your drift, they're harassing you. It's a lot of, I don't see how that could be law. Just because you're in the same area, that does not mean you're harassing them. If you're out there clanging pots and pans and you're spooking the birds and you're keeping them away, and if the duck hunters are shooting the water to scare the fish, then you're harassing each other. If you're invading each other's space, there's a common courtesy that should be observed amongst people of the outdoors. That common courtesy has quite become a thing of the past.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Okay, a newer law. I need I don't know, man. I don't know how you get.
It's not going anywhere. No, you're there. There's no shot you're going to call a game warden and say there's a boat 185 yards from me and I want to file a complaint. Now, if the dude's trolling around up in your spread and you're like, "Hey, man, we're trying to hunt," and he's like, "Screw off, this is my water." Now you've got something to talk about because somebody comes within 200 yards. First off, I've seen how I see how people guesstimate their fish when they put it up. Good luck guesstimating 200 yards.
Yeah.
Right. But let's take it one step further. You're dressed up like a stinking bush, or you're sitting in a stinking bush. I don't know you're there till you've shot at me. And now if you shot at me, I'm pissed, and there's going to be some harassment happen. But that blind in the middle of Redfish Bay is there all year long.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I didn't see the tops of 3 little caps sticking out whenever I was drifting past it. I've been drifting past it for the last 9 months, right? So if somebody gets in the proverbial pissing match and he won't leave, then you got some harassment stuff happening. But just don't sit down in your bush and say this 200 yards is mine. It's the law. It's not going to work out for you. And half the time, if you just let the dude drift on past or troll on past or whatever he's doing, he's going to be out of sight in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. A duck sees a boat year round. A duck does not look at a boat and go, "Oh, danger."
Yeah.
This is the thing that happens every year. I'm about to go to Louisiana and deal with it. And it's not that I'm saying that fishermen are special and this duck hunter has no right to where he's at. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when a dude comes within 100 yards of you, half the time he doesn't even know you're there, and shooting at him is just a piece of junk move. I'm not sensitive about that at all.
Scott, clear up the legal thing here. We had somebody say it's a newer law, and then of course you heard Dean and Scott, about the spirit of the law, so to speak. What are your thoughts here, man?
Okay, I looked it up just real quick because I wasn't positive, but I didn't think there was an actual distance on the law, and there doesn't seem to be. There's no set legal distance, no single nationwide law dictating how far you must be from a duck hunter. It just talks about ethics and common courtesy.
Exactly. That's what Caleb's talking about.
Yeah.
All that. Then you go on to, with Texas Parks and Wildlife and looked at hunter harassment is prohibited by Sportsman's Rights Act, which is part of the Parks and Wildlife Code. Prohibited actions intentionally interfering with someone who is hunting or catching wildlife, or intentionally harassing, driving, or disturbing wildlife to disrupt hunting. It does the fines and civil remedies, and defendant can argue that their conduct is protected by freedom of speech. Yeah, whatever. That's a weird one to go with. Harassment is defined as intentional behavior to annoy, torment, alarm, abuse, or embarrass another person. God dang, there's a lot of harassment in here. The context, frequency, and relationship between the involved parties are important factors. Basically, all right, fishermen, they only get to hunt for a little while every year. And when you're going through the marsh and you see a big duck spread, you just go around it. don't go over there by it. You know, it's not hard to tell when somebody's over there and they got, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 dozen decoys floating around a duck blind. I see it every year. I deal with it all the time, and they're usually gone by about 9 o'clock most days. And then you can go fish wherever the hell you want to fish. But when I was in Galveston, there was always a bunch of them back in the marsh. So first thing in the morning on a duck hunting morning, I would go out to the open bay and hit the shorelines where I knew there weren't any duck hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I heard all of them start up their little mud motors and all that crap and go running back in, then I would go back into the marsh.
Mm-hmm.
Just play the game. Yeah, basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, but
And then, well, how many times have you run across a flat? There's a raft of ducks out in the middle of the bay, like 4,000 ducks that have already learned exactly what those little boxes mean with the little heads poking up in them. And you kick up the giant raft of ducks, and as the ducks go flying around, boom, 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 everybody gets a shot now. You know, by default, you're actually helping the duck hunters. You know, that's, you push birds, you kick them up in the air, even though you have no intention of doing that. You're just running across a flat. And so, I mean, it's a give and take situation. The thing about it is, and not to interrupt Caleb, but you know, we all just get along in the famous words of Rodney King.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just get the chip off your shoulder when you walk out there, because Scott brought up the point that you can see this spread of decoys and everything, and you know, a decent person to go, hey, they're duck hunting over there, let's work around this way, blah blah. Sounds great, and that's precisely what I would do. But duck hunters tend to like hazy, dark, cold mornings, and I can't see that spread until I'm 100 yards from it, 75 yards from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go, oh man, oh dang it, and I start to move, and then some number 5s come over my head.
Yeah.
And now it's become a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't let go of things easily. That's it's a toxic trait, I know.
And that is true. It has become a thing. I've been running, and just because you're passing close to one, I mean, they'll pop a cap, pow, just, you know, to scare the crap out of people. And just like Caleb said, you're dressed like a bush, you're sitting in a bush. And then, like Scott said, just let the people pass you by, you know. But it has become a thing, because I have heard that before. I've heard it way too many times that I'll just pepper their ass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've heard that more often than not lately.
There was one out of South Padre that just came out this week. They peppered a tour boat. They said got too close to them, and there's conflicting stories as to whether they were shooting at ducks or not, but I got a funny feeling they weren't.
Yeah.
And there were 7 people on the boat that took pellets, and one of them
took them. They got hit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, one of them was a little boy, and he got hit like 2 or 3 inches from his eyeball. So you want to go to jail? Start peppering people. It's a dumbass way to go about expressing yourself. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact there was one in one of our little lakes over there in Galveston that lost his entire duck blind because of that.
I wonder how.
Yeah. Well, he peppered some old boys that also were duck hunters. They were out fishing. They said they were far enough away. Came around the corner. He peppered them. Shot their boat pretty good. And when they abandoned that duck blind later in the day, I don't know exactly how it happened, but there was an airboat that got attached to that duck blind some kind of way.
I know how it happened.
The entitlement on each side needs to go away. This entitlement, I've been rolling down a shoreline and got within 20 yards of a dude duck hunting. He stood up and he had a ghillie suit on. I was like, "Oh God, my bad, bro." And he's like, "Yeah." And so, you know, I got away from him and everything. But going back to Scott's point on the blind disappearing, there may or may not be a popular fishing spot in Matagorda that is called the Burning Bush, and it may have earned every bit that it got.
It's
and
biblical.
And also like the ghillie suit dude, I've had guys, you know, just politely stand up in the blind, give you the wave and let you know, hey man, we're in here today. And then it's like, oh, sorry, bro, I'm
Yeah.
out. You know,
Hey, Dean, you and I had one of those last time we fished
Yeah.
together last weekend.
yeah. I mean, and that's that. You know,
that
a little.
was a good example.
Yeah, a little friendly consideration is going to get way more cooperation from the other side than being, you know, going straight to aggression.
No, we were going to this one area that you talked to me about, and there was a duck blind there, and the guys stood up right as we were getting close. You moved out of the way. There were, to be honest, there weren't a lot of decoys out. I think there was only like 4 or 5, so it looked very normal. And I remember looking over there like, dang, I had.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
We were close to those guys, and all of a sudden Dean kind of gets out of the way. And you know what else happened? We just kind of looked. He got out of the way, and we drifted away.
Yeah, and what made that one not so obvious? So it was along the causeway. What these guys didn't need a boat to get to where they were hunting. They were from the road. They parked, walked in, and so they were even less obvious at that point.
It's it's pretty crazy, but just to clear up, go ahead, Scott. I know you got something, but just
I've told it on here before, but it's one of my favorites. Pulling through a marsh, and I came around a corner. Same situation. Guys they weren't even in a duck blind. They were just squatted in the bushes and had a couple dozen decoys out. They threw a fit, all mad, yelling, screaming. There was no way to see it, you know, as I'm pulling along. So I waved at them and, hey guys, sorry, man. They kept cussing me all the way across. You stupid fisherman, you know, damn fisherman, blah, blah, blah. It was a place I'd never once seen a duck hunter. And to top it off, I ain't seen a duck all day. I mean, there wasn't any ducks in there. And that's probably why they were so irritated. And then I look up and my customer says, that boat's floating out there in the middle. Yeah, it is. And the wind's blowing it to that opposite side over there. It's about a mile across that open lake.
They needed a ride, Scott. You could have given them a ride.
And they had lost their boat and it was floating across. And a little while later, they were standing up waving, wanting me to come over to them. Hey, y'all have shot, you know, talked about shooting at me and shit. I ain't going back over there.
Yeah, but my own safety. The duck hunter that never said a word to me that I'd really like to hear his thoughts was the ones that had the mojo decoys out with the flappy wings, and I thought they were seagulls on top of redfish.
You casting toward them?
No, I didn't cast at them, but I did. I came from probably quarter a mile away because I could see the little wings flashing, and I was like, "Oh man, that's redfish over there." There's a big back like there's a redfish over there, and man, I ran about half the distance, and then I shut down and got on the trolling motor and just steadily trolled to them for another 10 minutes, and I bet I was, I don't know, 40 yards away, and I was like, "Oh, I think that's a duck decoy."
It's a Caleb decoy.
This dude watched me come for 5 minutes. Like, what's he doing?
The other thing about when Dean and I the other day is the guys got up and out of the blind. I don't know if they were just kind of let us know where they were, and I thought they were leaving, and then they just kind of walked around and circled back in and sat back in the blind. So you just don't know on some of these things. It's crazy. Dean?
Wild.
Well, I mean, there's all varieties. I mean, you're going to see a little bit of everything. The best thing to remember is, you know, don't get worked up over any of it. It's just a fish. It's just a duck. You know, it ain't worth the aggravation. And so you're not going to change the world. You can sit out there and you can scream and yell at everybody you want to. You're just going to piss yourself off. You're not going to change the other guy. You're not going to change the culture of what is taking place out there, you know, and no matter which side you're on, give it 15 or 20 minutes. The other dude is gone. Put some space between yourselves, and there's just no sense in getting fired up.
All these things, whether it's guys running, you know, through your drift or coming up on you when you're waiting, or duck hunters and all that.
Yeah.
The thing about all this, it's so easy to avoid. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world to avoid.
You know, when somebody gets all bent out of shape, whether it's somebody coming too close to them while they're drifting or duck hunters, all that tells me is you haven't done this very much, because I used to get all kinds of worked up, and now it's just like, idiot probably doesn't know any better. He'll be gone in a minute. I kind of get a chuckle out of it, and that's why I don't get worked up about duck hunters. If y'all notice, I'm pretty calm and collected about them. I have
And
never
the thing,
I've never
what I
been
say
to
about
duck
duck season, the thing about duck season is that it's short and it's fixing to be over.
Mhm.
And it's only a limited time that they're out there doing that. So, I mean, you deal with it. You find other places to fish during duck season. I mean, you know where the duck hunters are congregated,
Mhm.
and you know that's where the ducks live. And there's other options of places to fish. So for a certain amount of time, you know, use those other options. And I mean, here it is, January something. I think 20 or 30, the end of this month, duck season is over.
And as Colby said, this is not to disparage duck hunters because we've all been duck hunting. I think it's safe to say we've all been duck hunting. And he said we're not all the same. No, that's absolutely fair. It's more, and whomever sent that message to me, I have your name, but I can't find it right now.
What does the comment after Colby say, John?
It says, "Nah, you can't fool us, Colby." But yeah, and I'm sure a lot of them are listeners of the podcast too. It's just like it's so easy. It's the
Back to
easiest
the
thing.
original question though, the
Mhm.
original guy wanted us
The law.
to say the law. He's expressly put in there 200 yards, and I can't find anything anywhere that says 200 yards or
See there?
any kind of, there's no set limit that
Yeah.
I can find anywhere. I mean, I'll prove me wrong. I mean, send it to me. I'll look it up and
Mhm.
I'll be happy to correct myself. But in my brief little Google hunt here, I'm usually pretty good about finding the laws. And
Yeah. Well, you were in law enforcement, so
I didn't find that
trust
one.
you. I would trust you. And yeah, no. By the way, we have our final winner. His name, Caleb, is Bryce Nesbitt, Nesbitt. How much money does he have? Is a question. So,
How do you say his name?
Bryce Nesbitt, N as in Nancy, Esbitt.
Okay, I was gonna make sure that the other Bryce Nesbitt in here didn't think it was him. We had to spell it.
There's two Bryce Nesbitts. Of course there is. All right, so you guys check out the weather forecast, and we're going to get to what would Scott do, and Caleb and Dean. Frankly, I'm going fishing this weekend. I ain't going fishing Sunday, but I might go Friday and Saturday. That's
Are you
for
going to be
darn
down in time to fish on Friday?
I might knock off early, but those damn Texans, I might have to stay. But we'll see. I'm working on it. I'm efforting. I want to get a couple of good more.
Friday is your day.
Boat. Yeah,
Friday.
I saw that.
Friday's your day,
Go ahead.
man.
You start. What would you do, man?
I'd go fishing on Friday.
And
sick day. That's what sick days are for, man. Back in the old, whenever I had a real job back in the day, and it started in January, and I had 2 weeks of vacation and 1 week of sick days. By the time I got to April 1st, I was out. I was like, I'm just gonna have to work the rest of the year, because when those opportunities were there, I went for it. But man, I mean, it's going to be a lot of the same. We got this low tide. We're behind the full moon a little bit now. So you go out at noon, 1, 2 o'clock. The afternoon is all good right now. The major is in the afternoon. The tides are low. Tomorrow we got 20 plus mile an hour wind cranking up again. And it's going to be tough. But January is when you hit the windows, when you hit the in-between, just like I did 2 days ago. The in-between was out. It was Sunday. It was absolutely perfect. The conditions were there. First spot we went to, 0 fish. Second spot, 0 fish. Third spot, we stood there for 6 hours and tore them up. So if you get a window, go for it. This week, Friday and Saturday is the window.
What would Joe do, Scott? I see she's trying to get back on the podcast.
Yeah, she was attacking my shoelaces again.
She keeps barking, and I think it's Steve, and I keep looking around to kick him, and he's over there asleep.
He was grabbing my shoelaces and pulling and then barking at them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Thursday, if you can slip out, like Dean said, call in sick, get your days in on Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon, do the afternoon fishing thing. Hell, I would personally, I'm not getting out there before about 9 or 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to beat yourself up and get out there when it's that damn cold.
Mhm.
By Sunday afternoon, it's time to start wrapping things up or actually Saturday afternoon, that north wind's going to start cooking. Sunday is a no-go for
Yeah,
me.
Sunday's no.
Yeah, Sunday's a definite no-go. I mean, we're talking 30 plus mile an hour winds out of the north, and
Mhm.
temperatures dropping really quick. When we return here next week, we'll see how close this forecast is. But
Yeah,
Jesus, it's I got snow in my forecast here.
yeah. I got
Seagrass.
snow here. I
Like
got snow
5
here.
inches of snow over 2 days.
Well, I didn't know that much. I didn't
In
know
Port
that.
O'Connor?
Wait a
Fort
minute.
O'Connor's got 5 inches of snow in 2 days. In the
Oh, which
forecast.
2 days are you
Oh
looking
yeah,
at?
Tuesday
Usually
night.
Wednesday.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday.
I got to
Yeah,
put that on my calendar.
I mean, I kind of hope it does, because I like my photography stuff, and I got this cute little brown puppy,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, some cool pictures of my brown puppy in the snow playing. I kind of like for it to snow a little bit. Just so I can
Gibson
have
used to
that.
love the cold, man.
Yeah.
Labradors love the cold. Caleb, I don't know how much you might have to offer, but appreciate you offering those Angler U
I mean,
memberships here.
let's make assumptions. Why don't we?
Oh
I'm
my
just
God.
asking. I'm asking. That's a question.
Okay,
Labrador-
first off, if you won, message me on Facebook Messenger, preferably. A couple of you have my cell phone. Give me your email before tonight, and I'll get y'all put in. But what I was going to add to what these guys said is, if I was trying to go catch a big trout, I would be out there Saturday morning, and I would be grinding probably an hour into that frontal passage on the, because it's supposed to be ripping out of the south Friday night and Saturday morning. I mean, I see 15 to 35 on here at midnight out of the south, but the next morning, the south shoreline should have been protected and should still be looking pretty good. I'd be like, East Bay, West Galveston, those kind of places. I would be on a sweet spot on that south shoreline. And when that northern starts coming in, I'd probably, I mean, unless I had a little boat and I just needed to get back across, I'd probably stay for about an hour of it. After that, I'd probably come back in. But because as that front's coming in, the barometer is plummeting, and then whenever the front line passes, then it starts rising back up, and that quick move in the barometer can trigger some good ones to eat.
That was one of my go-tos. Though you're making me miss East Matagorda Bay, man.
Hmm?
You're making me miss East Matagorda. That was one of my go-to moves right there. And kind of a bittersweet weekend for me. I got to go out on my boat one more time, catch some fish, and then I'm taking it over to the boat yard and getting that new Bite Me edition, baby. The Bite Me edition Warrior. How about that? You guys got anything? Be sure to book our captains here and just raise your hand if you got anything you want to add. Caleb already talked about his. Dean, Scott, you got anything happening?
I can just tell you that Labrador farts stink. Oh my God. She about made me gag just then. Right as I was finishing up what would Scott do?
Yeah,
Holy crap.
she's too cute. She doesn't stink. Not at all.
Dude.
All right, boys. Always fun. And by the way, I really love when we dig in deep on a topic like that duck hunter one. We got another topic already in the can for next week, and we'll be here. So you guys subscribe, and you guys definitely catch them up. Be safe. It's going to be cold, and we'll have a good time. So you guys have a great week. Have a great weekend. Stay warm. Catch them up, and we will talk to you next time.
Today we learned that
Try that again.
Today we answered the question: is Caleb smarter than a duck?
It's hard to see their heads in the blind because they're after that duck sausage all the time.